Welcome to War Chronicle, your destination for untold stories of wars, heroes, and machines that shaped history. From the skies of dogfights to the trenches of forgotten battles, we uncover the strategy, bravery, and technology behind humanity's greatest conflicts. Today we are going to talk about the history of fighter jets from the very beginning till today. And in the end, we will show you what is the best fighter jet ever made. Dogfights only started to appear after the appearance of fast and maneuverable planes. In this period, several innovations appeared, like retractable landing gear, which was really important because it reduced the drag and made the plane go faster. All these limitations forced the engineers to redesign and improve the fighter planes. And that's how the first advanced fighter plane appeared. The first operational jet fighter was the German fighter plane, the Me-262. In this period, several new innovations appeared. For example, the introduction of the radar. We can see that the top speed increased 2 times, and the climb rate increased 1.6 times. Let's call them the third generation of fighter planes. The range also went up, which allowed the planes to travel further distances without having to stop for fuel. These generations aren't quite accepted by everyone, but we will explain to you our point of view. The 5th generation fighter planes are those that have been designed from the ground up with stealth in mind, such as the F-22 Raptor, the F-35 Lightning, and the Su-57 Felon. The top speed and the range are also much higher, which allows these planes to travel to distant theaters of war in a short amount of time. The payload and the payload fraction are also much higher than the previous generations. This means that these planes can carry a lot of weapons and equipment with them. These fighter planes are highly advanced and expensive to buy and maintain. They have many new technologies that make them very capable, such as advanced electronic warfare capabilities, the ability to carry internal weapons, and the ability to operate in a network-centric environment. This last feature allows the planes to share information with each other and other assets in real time. This makes them very powerful because they can operate as a team to accomplish a mission. These generations are defined based on the degree of automation and stealth capabilities. 4th generation fighter planes are those that have been upgraded with modern electronics, such as the F-16, the Mirage 2000, and the Su-27, every year. More and more innovations appear, and the fighter planes become better and better. Of course, the question is, which is the best fighter jet ever made? The answer is none of them. There is no best fighter jet ever made, because each one was designed to perform a specific role and function. But if we have to choose one, we will go with the F-35 Lightning. It is considered the best fighter jet ever made because it is the most advanced fighter jet in the world. It has the most advanced stealth capabilities, the most advanced electronic warfare capabilities, and the most advanced sensors. In addition, it is also the most versatile fighter jet in the world. It can perform all types of missions, including air superiority, air defense, ground attack, reconnaissance, and even search and rescue. These upgrades have allowed these planes to perform more sophisticated missions than their predecessors. In addition, many of these planes have been equipped with stealth features to reduce their visibility on radar. This generation is a continuation of the previous one. That's why it's also known as the Super Hornet. Some examples of 4th generation plus fighter planes are the F-15E Strike Eagle, the F-15C Strike Eagle, and the F-117 Nighthawk. The payload and the payload fraction went up, which allowed the planes to carry more weapons. In this period, the competition between America and Russia became really intense. Both of them wanted to have the most lethal and advanced fighter jet. That's why the development of the fighter planes went really fast. In this period, multi-role fighter planes appeared. A multi-role fighter plane is a fighter plane that can perform a variety of different missions, such as air superiority, air defense, ground attack, and reconnaissance. Before this period, the fighter planes were designed to perform just one mission. For example, the F-4 Phantom was designed to perform only air superiority and air defense missions. But with the introduction of the F-15 Eagle, it was possible to design a fighter jet that could perform all the missions. The first multi-role fighter jet was the F-15 Eagle. It was designed by the American company McDonnell Douglas. This fighter jet was equipped with a powerful engine and had the ability to carry a large payload of weapons. It also had advanced avionics and a powerful radar, which gave it the ability to operate in all weather conditions. The F-15 Eagle was so successful that it led to the development of several variants. One of the most famous variants is the F-15E Strike Eagle, which is designed for ground attack missions. The range also went up, which was pretty important because now the planes could cover bigger distances without refueling. But the most important thing is that the payload went up. The planes could carry more weapons, which made them more efficient. Also, the payload fraction went up. This means that the planes could carry more weapons compared to their weight. This innovation had a huge impact on the outcome of the war. Because of the radar, the Allied forces could detect the enemy long before they were visible on the radar screen. Also, it allowed the pilots to perform aerial refueling. Aerial refueling was extremely important because it allowed the planes to travel further distances without having to stop for fuel. This was especially useful for the US military, who had to transport large amounts of troops and equipment around the world. Without aerial refueling, it would have been impossible to support the military operations in multiple theaters of war. Another important innovation was the introduction of the autopilot system. This innovation made the planes easier to fly and more accurate when bombing. This was especially useful for the bombers who had to fly long missions over enemy territory. The autopilot system allowed them to stay on course and altitude without having to make constant adjustments. This innovation also allowed for the development of new tactics and strategies, especially the interception of bombers by fighters. With the help of the radar, fighters could detect the bombers long before they were visible and intercept them before they could release their bombs. This tactic was used extensively during the Cold War, when both sides had large numbers of bombers and fighters. It had 2 turbojet engines, which gave it the ability to reach a maximum speed of 850 kilometers per hour. Despite having a great speed, this plane had many issues with reliability and production problems. Still, it was the first jet fighter, so it doesn't matter. It became famous because of the fact that it was the first jet fighter, and not because of its capabilities. If we compare it with the contemporary piston-engine fighter planes, we can see that it had a much better performance. It was almost twice as fast as the British Spitfire, and 3 times as fast as the American P-51 Mustang. But still, it couldn't perform sharp turns like the other planes. It was very difficult to land because of the lack of speed when the afterburner was off, and it had no ability to do a vertical takeoff. It was called the Fokker D7. This German fighter plane had a better engine, new machine guns, and a better airframe. With this, it could fly faster, climb faster, and turn faster than any other plane of its time. And if you add the Fokker-Eindeker's maneuverability, it becomes a perfect hunter in the sky. This fighter was so good that it became the best fighter plane of World War I. It had a 23% higher kill ratio than the British fighter planes. Before we start talking about fighter planes, we need to talk about the biplane. A biplane is an aircraft that has 2 sets of wings, one above the other, mounted on a common fuselage or body. The first successful airplane with 2 parallel wings was built in 1909 by the French aviator and engineer Santos Dumont. The first fighter planes were developed at the beginning of World War I at that time. All aircraft were made out of wood and fabric. They didn't even have engines. But with the advancement of technology, they started to be equipped with powerful engines. These engines were made out of heavy materials such as cast iron and steel. That's why these early fighter planes had very limited speed. Also, their climb rate was very slow, but they could stay in the air for hours. Because of this, most of the fighters had to be deployed close to the front line, so they can quickly react to the enemy. During World War I, the main purpose of the fighter planes was to shoot down enemy bombers and observation planes, because back then, there weren't any dogfights. After the First World War, all countries wanted to have the fastest and most lethal fighter planes. So the race for new technologies began. But before talking about the jets, let's take a look at the performance of the fighter planes from the interwar period. Here we can notice the big step forward that was made. The top speed increased 4 times, and the climb rate 6 times. And although the range decreased a bit, it was still impressive that these planes could fly up to 2,500 kilometers in one direction without refueling. We can also see that the armament changed. Most of the planes had 4 machine guns or cannons, but some of them had bombs, and some others had a combination of bombs and machine guns. In the late 1930s, jet engines became available. After the Second World War, it was time for the next generation of fighter planes. Let's call them second-generation jet fighter planes. After looking at all these innovations, we can see that the performance of the planes went up. After the Cold War, it was time for the next generation of fighter planes. If we analyze the stats of the third generation of fighter planes, we can notice that the top speed remained almost the same, but the climb rate went up twice. After the third generation, we had the fourth and the fourth plus generation, and finally, we got the fifth generation fighter planes. If we look at the performance of the fifth generation of fighter planes, we can see that they are much faster and climb much faster than the previous generations. As you can see, every generation of fighter planes was better than the previous one. Thank you for watching War Chronicle, where the past takes flight.